Welcome to the fifth module of our MOOC on EU space governance. In this video, we will delve into the crucial topic of the EU upstream market, with a particular focus on the role of launchers in ensuring European strategic autonomy in access to space. Now, this video will be divided into 5 sections. First, we'll introduce the concept of strategic autonomy in EU space policy. Next, we'll provide a very short overview of the historical development and the current state of the EU upstream market. Then we'll explore the advantages and disadvantages, or challenges to, maintaining autonomy in space launch capabilities. Afterward, we'll discuss the future plans for the EU to tackle the launcher crisis, which was exacerbated by the Ukraine war. And finally, we'll wrap up with some concluding thoughts. So let's get started. The notion of strategic autonomy has become a central tenet in European Union policy, and specifically in the realm of defense, security, and space. But what does it mean in the context of space policy? Well, strategic autonomy in EU space policy refers to the European Union's ability to independently access, use, and protect space for its own purposes. Now, this autonomy is essential for a number of reasons. It ensures that the EU can maintain its security and defense capabilities, that it can safeguard its economic interests, and that it can sustain its technological leadership without having to rely on external powers. Now, the European Union's global strategy, adopted in 2016, explicitly underscores the importance of strategic autonomy. This document highlights the need for the European Union to ensure its freedom of action in an increasingly multipolar world, where access to and use of space, for one, is increasingly contested. Space capabilities, including satellite navigation, Earth observation, and secure communication, are clearly critical to the broader geopolitical goals of the European Union. And at the heart of this strategic autonomy lies the capability to launch and to operate space assets independently. Now, the EU upstream space market, which encompasses activities related to the development, manufacturing, and launch of space assets, has evolved significantly over the past few decades. As we have seen in the very first module of our MOOC, the journey began in the 1960s with the establishment of the European Space Research Organization, or ESRO, and the European Launcher Development Organization, or ELDO, which, as we know later, both merged to form the European Space Agency in 1975. Since then, the European Union and ESA have played a pivotal role in developing Europe's space capabilities, from the iconic Ariane launchers to the Galileo satellite navigation system. And today, the European space upstream market is a robust and diverse sector, comprising major players like Ariane Group, Airbus Defence and Space, and Thales Alenia Space, as well as a growing number of small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs. And these companies operate under various business models, ranging from fully integrated systems where the same company designs, builds, and launches satellites, to collaborative models where different entities specialize in different stages of the process. Now, despite its achievements, the European space sector faces intense competition from global players, particularly in the launcher market, where the emergence of private companies like SpaceX has drastically reshaped the landscape. And this has led the EU to reevaluate its approach to maintaining and enhancing its strategic autonomy. Autonomous access to space is seen as a cornerstone of Europe's strategic autonomy, as we have said. But what are the advantages and the main challenges to this autonomy in the context of space launch capabilities. First, advantages. Clearly, autonomy in space launchers would provide the European Union with critical security and defense benefits. Right? It ensures that Europe can launch and operate its own satellites without depending on external powers. And that is, of course, particularly important for sensitive military, security, and intelligence applications. Moreover, by developing and by maintaining its own launch capabilities, the European Union can drive technological innovation, creating high-skilled jobs and ensuring that Europe remains competitive in the global space market. But pursuing this kind of autonomy is not without its own challenges. Developing and maintaining cutting-edge launch capabilities is expensive, requiring substantial public investment. The EU also faces the risk of technological obsolescence because it has to keep pace with rapid advancements in the global space sector. Moreover, the push for autonomy might lead to fragmentation within Europe because different countries and different companies are competing for very limited resources and contracts. In recent years, the importance of autonomous access to space has been increasingly recognized in EU policy. The European Union has been very clear in its commitment to maintaining independent launch capabilities, which was highlighted, for one, in the EU Space Programme regulation of 2021, which we discussed. This regulation emphasizes the need for secure and autonomous access to space as really a priority for Europe. And as noted in our introduction, this has really become all the more urgent since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Since the outbreak of this war in Ukraine, Europe can no longer rely on Russia as a partner for launching its satellites into space. So to combat this current launcher crisis, European Commissioner for Internal Market and Services Thierry Breton repeated his ambition to develop a true European launcher policy within an EU framework. A first real step to resolving this crisis was made in July 2024 when Ariane 6 completed its first successful launch. Now, this date marked 10 years since the design for this sixth generation European launcher was completed. So, although Ariane 6 will soon deliver its first commercial payload into orbit, it is clear that much more needs to be done to bridge the gap with competing launchers and to meet all demands of the still growing European space industry. So concretely, the Commission could aggregate the demand for launchers in a move to give the industry clear guidelines before manufacturing and to also boost competition in the businesses which ultimately still are dominated by very few big companies such as Ariane Group. This is not only about meeting increasing demand, it is also a matter of competitiveness. As Thierry Breton noted, Europeans would have to deal with a clear European preference in the same way that the US satellites only use US rockets. Other priorities mentioned to develop this launcher strategy include working on so-called game-changer innovations to really develop the next generation of launchers and to invest in crucial infrastructures, including modernization. The scheme would therefore build a fully fledged access to space component, covering all the aspects of a dedicated European launcher policy from R&D to deployment, including the security and defense dimensions of it all. Now, with working with the member states of the European Union underway, the EU wants the policy in place before the start of the next multi-annual financial framework, which is the EU 7-year budget, the next one which starts in 2028, which could of course help with a financial boost. So in conclusion, the EU upstream market and the role of launchers are critical to Europe's strategic autonomy in space. As we have seen, this strategic autonomy is not just about just having the capability to launch satellites, but it is also about ensuring that Europe can protect its interests, can maintain its security, and can compete globally. The historical development of the EU upstream market, the challenges to, but also clearly the advantages of autonomous launch capabilities, and the Commission planning for truly autonomous European launch capabilities all demonstrate the EU's commitment to securing its place in space. And as we move forward, it will be essential for Europe to continue investing in its space sector, to foster collaboration amongst its various stakeholders and actors, and ensuring that it can independently access and utilize space. And by doing so, the EU can really safeguard its strategic autonomy and continue to be a leader in the global space arena. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of the EU upstream market and the role of launchers in European strategic autonomy. Stay tuned for the next video in this module, where we will dive deeper into the European midstream and downstream markets to conclude this entrepreneurial space ecosystem.